I want to talk a little bit today. I really appreciate you, Mr. Roth, your characterization of the importance of independence as the coin of the realm, and secondly, the importance of transparency. And down that path, let me clarify the different kinds of inspectors general we have. I don't think a lot of people understand that we have two completely different animals. We have the presidentially appointed inspector generals that must be confirmed by the United States Senate, which I think provides more independence in terms of appearances than the other kinds of IGs we have, which are the designated federal entity IGs. They are not appointed by the President. They are not confirmed by the Senate. They are, in fact, appointed by their agencies. And we have worked at reforming this because, on its face, that's a problem. Let me ask you this question. Is there a list of the salaries of the designated federal entity inspectors general?
I believe, Senator, it would simply be you'd have to look through the public records.
Wait, it's not there.
But there's no.
It's not there.
There's no list that I'm aware of.
Well, wouldn't SIGI be in a position to request that information? I mean, if we're going to talk about transparency, we've been trying to get this information.
Right.
And guess what? All this talk about transparency among the IG community, guess who doesn't want to tell us how much money they're making? The inspectors general in these designated federal entities. Would you be surprised to find out that there are inspector generals in some of these small agencies that are making twice as much as the four of you?
I would not be surprised. I actually know that that is an issue in the inspector general community.
Isn't that a scandal?
I think it's a significant issue.
Well, why wouldn't it be a scandal? Why in the world would an inspector general at the Farm Credit Agency be making twice as much as the inspector general at HHS?
I don't know how the pay scales have worked out. I do know that for the presidentially appointed inspectors generals, there's also apparently a range of salaries, given some of the exceptions that have been put into statutes over the years.
For these smaller inspector generals, isn't it true that they're not getting peer review on a lot of their work because they're not adhering to the Yellow Book?
I can follow up on that, Senator, and talk with our audit committee about.
Well, don't you have a pilot program looking at whether or not SIGI can, in fact, begin peer review on these reports they do that they don't adhere to the Yellow Book standards, which is called, for the record, the Yellow Book standard, you all know, but for the record, that is, in fact, the government-approved auditing standards. That is the Bible for a government auditor. Because these are so small, a lot of these DFEs, they don't have the capability of actually adhering to Yellow Book standards. And if you don't adhere to the Yellow Book standards, you can't get peer review. Isn't that correct?
We are looking at the issue, and I will follow up. I have to say 6 weeks into the job as SIGI chair, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, I believe there was a pilot program about looking at how SIGI could help with peer review on these reports, because if you're not doing very many and you're making twice as much as the IGs in the largest agencies, I mean, look at Social Security. I mean, imagine the work you need to be doing. And I think, what do you make, Mr. O'Carroll? I think you make about $170,000 a year?
That's correct, Senator.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what's rotten in Denmark here. We inadvertently put them in a situation where their salaries are now adjusted according to the people who work at their agencies. So let's say we have something like the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, head of the Federal Reserve, the board gives them a bonus. Well, guess what happens? The IG gets a bonus, because he's hooked or she's hooked to the salary of the agency head that they're overseeing. So let me see if I get this straight. You have an inspector general who makes what the boss makes if the boss gets a bonus. Now, how likely is that inspector general going to be exposing that the boss has problems? Because guess whose salary is going to be impacted? The salary of the inspector general. Now, that's absolutely unconscionable within an auditing community. That I would have to sit and think, now, if I expose the head of this agency for wrongdoing, they're not going to get a bonus. And if they don't get a bonus, I don't get a salary increase. I don't go to $320,000 a year or $270,000 a year. This is a huge problem. And I would like you, as the head of SIGI, to report back to this committee and to the chairman about how you would propose us dealing with what is clearly an ethical problem within the Inspector General community.